Welcome back to another episode of the Wealthy Lawyer Squad podcast. Before we dive into today's topic, which is really important and something that is very near and dear to my heart, we're going to talk about burnout and some of my own experiences with burnout and my tips for, first of all, hoping we don't have it. And then if it does happen or it starts to, creep up on us, ways that we can mitigate it and overcome it and also take a period of rest. But before we dive into that, I'm excited to announce that this episode is brought to you by Law Firm Sites. Law Firm Sites is not only owned by one of my dear friends, but they have been building custom websites and providing online marketing for law firms for over 23 years. They are great at what they do because it is all that they do. They are the experts. So if you are looking to expand the reach of your law firm or just improve your online presence, Law Firm Sites has the team to do it. Go to their website, lawfirmsites.com, or call 800-932-8242 and mention the Wealthy Lawyer Squad to receive 10% off of any of their website and or marketing packages. Definitely check them out if you're starting a law firm. If you have an existing law firm, they are fabulous. So, without any further ado, let's dive in. Before we talk about burnout and kind of what it is and the things that we can do to avoid it, mitigate it, overcome it, I want to share a little bit about what I've been up to lately and kind of what I've been experiencing on my own in my personal life and in my career the past couple of weeks. So, my family and I just got back from a really phenomenal trip. We went on an Alaskan cruise. So, it was me, my husband Andrew, our two little boys, Drew and Ben. It was my parents, my in laws, and my brother in law, sister in law, and our little niece. And we just had the best time. Highly, highly recommend an Alaskan cruise. It was just cool to get to see all the scenery and everything, but still enjoy the ship. I grew up cruising, and that was like my main way of traveling when I was younger. And then when I became an adult, I kind of realized I like more true traveling, getting out into the city and really experiencing everything. But hands down, this was an incredible way to experience Alaska. So definitely recommend it. But what happened was right before we left for the trip, no matter what, you're always going to have, I think, kind of that, okay, we got to get work out. We got to get everything done, before I go out of town, working with my partner, Kristen, and our team to get everything out and get everything ready and feel good, for me to leave. And it was the first trip, really the second trip that I've ever taken in my career since I've been practicing law for 13 years now that I didn't bring a laptop. So the whole plan was go on this trip. Don't bring a laptop, have my team, Kristen and the rest of the team monitoring emails. If they needed me, I was still in the US, so I still had cell service. I didn't buy the Wi-Fi package on the cruise ship. I was really proud of myself. But that all was kind of going on. There was also personal stuff happening right before the trip. Just some stuff with my kids and going to the doctor for Ben and just dealing with some things. And then also we were selling one of our investment properties. And that was really, I think, the biggest thing. It was a very difficult transaction. There was a lot of issues and things popping up and stuff happening. And I was spending 2-3 hours a day dealing with that on top of kids, law firm, coaching business, all the things, packing for a trip, all the things of life. And I went into the trip feeling burnt out. When I went on the trip, then when I left, got on the airplane, I felt fine. I relaxed. I enjoyed. We had a fabulous time. Felt like I was feeling pretty good. But for the first time in a while, as the trip wrapped up, I was dreading going back to real life. I was dreading going back to work. And I was like, wow, like I don't normally feel like this. Usually I feel like, man, I'm sad the trip is over, but I love my life and I'm ready to get back into the swing of things. I did not feel that way. I felt so tired. I felt so run down. And I think what happened was all that burnout that had kind of started to manifest itself in my body and in my emotions, it was just kind of laying dormant there, even though I rested on the trip and I worked out a bunch and we had a great time. And so I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today. And I know that in law school, in law practice, burnout is so common. It's so common and it's often kind of made to seem like, wow, if you're really busy and you're tired and you're stressed out, then you're successful. And if you've been around this show long enough, you know that that is not, in my opinion, a great, measure of our success. Yes, hard work is great and it has its time and its place, but not at the expense of our health and our well-being. And so I wanted to talk about it today because maybe you've been in my shoes. Maybe you're in my shoes right now, or maybe you're just starting law school or you just have started your law practice and you're like, wow, that hasn't happened yet, but I don't want that to happen to me. So let's first talk about kind of recognizing some of the signs when you are starting to encounter burnout or you're already deep into it. And a lot of these are the same things that I have been feeling the past couple weeks. It's been really hard for me to get back into the swing of things, which is not normal for me at all. So chronic fatigue, that is a big indication that you are burnt out. Even if you're getting enough sleep, say, but you still just feel exhausted, you don't feel motivated, you just feel really out of it, that is a very common sign that you might be approaching or in the midst of burnout. Insomnia or trouble sleeping. I have a lot of friends that kind of is how it manifests for them. They lay in bed at night and their mind is just turning. For me, typically, I coma. The second my head hits the pillow, I am out. But I will tell you, the past few weeks since I got back, even I think not the night we got back, because we got back really late and I was just dead to the world. But the next night, like I was just thinking about all the things that we needed to do and we needed to accomplish. And, it was just, I don't know, it was unusual for me. And I was like, this is a sign that this is burnout. This is burnout. And I was ignoring it for a bit before we left, just trying to push to the finish line. But maybe if you're encountering that, that's a good indicator for you that you need to take a step back and figure out what's going on. Increased irritability. I mean, if you talk to my husband, he'll probably attest that I have not been myself, the past few weeks. And the real estate transaction is still ongoing. There's still issues. And I feel like it's just made me in this funky, icky headspace that I'm not proud of and I don't love, but I'm human. So that's another sign to look out for as well. Feelings of helplessness, or like a sense of detachment from work or from school. That's another clear indicator. So, I mean, again, hard work is great and it does really help you to kind of get to where you need to go so often, but at what expense? So, maybe you're prepping for your law school exams or you have a big project at work. If you start to kind of feel like, even though it's something you care deeply about and it's your goal, but you start to feel very detached from it, that's a good sign. Hey, let's take a step back and kind of think about, how can I correct this course? How can I take care of myself in a way that will get me through that exam or through that project? And then I can take, more of a break if I need to. If there's anything that's occurring like this in your world, number one, it's normal. It's okay. It's really hard not to beat ourselves up when we start to feel like this. I had a therapy session earlier this week and I was explaining to my therapist how I was feeling. And she's like, oh, burnout, easy diagnosis. And I'm like, I know, but it's hard for me because I don't want to feel like I'm letting people down or my clients down or my family down or my law partner. But she said to me, she's like, well, if you don't take a break and you don't kind of reassess what's happening, then it's just going to get worse. And then you really might let someone down truly, because as of now, you probably honestly have not done that at all. So here's some things that have been helping me, and that I hope would help you too if you are either in the midst of this or you feel like it could be approaching, or if you don't feel burnt out at all, but you want to make sure that as you move through law school, as you move through your law practice, that you are not getting to that point to the greatest extent possible. So one of the biggest things I think, and I think this phrase has been overused and it means so many different things to different people, but self-care. So what I did last week for myself, my version of self-care in that moment was a massage and just taking the weekend and making no plans. I made zero social plans last weekend. And to the extent that I could, having 2 toddlers, I just laid in bed and read a book. And it helped me so much. I still don't feel 100% like myself, but the difference between Friday when I shut my laptop to Monday morning when I started back up again, I felt so much better. I could tell already that my nervous system was starting to recalibrate and I was starting to feel more like myself. Now, what I noticed, this is interesting, Monday, Tuesday, as I started to move through my day, I was still really tired in the morning, but once I got myself moving and up and going, then I was feeling better. That hadn't happened that first week when I was feeling really, really burnt out. So I think what that shows, at least for me, and it might be the same for you, is it might happen in the kind of rest and healing might happen in increments. So what I'm hoping is this weekend, I also have very minimal plans. I have some plans. I have a friend in town who went to law school with Kristen, and then getting together with another one of my close friends, hoping it's just going to be nice, nice friend time that will also, feed me in a different way. But I'm also going to just chill. I'm going to chill out. I'm going to keep reading that same book and just relax. And I hope that by Monday or halfway through next week, we're in a better spot. Also, for those of you who are listening who are in Florida this week, it was Hurricane Milton, and it was just very scary because we recently had another hurricane, Helene, and I think it's just watching people, suffering in their homes and their belongings where there's been deaths. And Kristen was very close to where the eye of the storm was supposed to hit. So I think it's just a lot. It's just a lot, and it happens to the best of us sometimes. It really does. Another thing that I have found very important for me, especially since I work from home so often, is setting boundaries. Time boundaries around when I work and when I don't, and really trying to put the computer away when I'm not working and not think about work and give, myself the mental break. So let's say you're in law school and you're studying like crazy. I'm a big believer that deep work, like deep uninterrupted work for 5 hours, let's say, is so much better than just working for like 10 hours or studying for 10 hours that day or 8 hours. If you can put all the distractions aside and truly stay focused on a task, studying or working on a memo or preparing for trial, whatever it is, studying for the bar exam, if you can get that deep work, it is amazing when you put aside distractions, how much you can get done in a shorter period of time. And then you will have time to take care of yourself and rest. When I was in bar study, all those years ago, I had a set schedule. I would study until 5 p.m. As it got closer, maybe some days 5:30 or 6, and then I would stop. I would put it away, I would watch TV, I would read a book, I'd go see a friend, I'd go work out, whatever it was, so I could feel ready to go the next day. If you just keep going, you are not going to stay motivated, or it's going to be very hard to stay motivated, and you're not going to be sharp and clear in your mind. And I would rather have sharp, clear 5 hours than kind of distracted all over the place 8-10 hours of work. I think we underestimate how much deep work actually impacts what we do. And honestly, the setting of those time boundaries and those work and study boundaries is incredibly crucial for mental health. I was definitely not doing that before my trip. I was working weekends, I was working late nights, just trying to get everything done, which is not necessarily bad in and of itself. And I probably would have been okay if it wasn't for this crazy real estate transaction. But hey, life throws for a loop sometimes. So you got to make sure you have those boundaries. Something else that I've done this week, and it sounds so easy, exercise, like, oh, just exercise and you'll feel better. But every time this week that I went for a walk or I hopped on the Peloton, or tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym and lift, literally as soon as I was done, I could just feel my mindset being so much more positive, my energy levels going up, and just feeling those endorphins. It's just so easy, whether it's a 10-minute walk outside or going to the gym or going to a Pilates class or whatever. I think all of these things, I think the common theme is we often underestimate how crucial all of this is to being happy and having a healthy well-being and being successful at the same time, and doing it while still feeling healthy. I think we underestimate how powerful these tools are. Again, hard work, our brains, our connections, all of that is important. But if we don't stay healthy and mentally well while we're achieving all the goals and being all the things, what are we even doing it for? Especially if we just end up in burnout. So definitely, definitely physical exercise is so, so key. And I have tried really hard because I have two reactions when I'm stressed. Sometimes the reaction is I just don't eat that much. In law school, there was one semester I can remember it so clearly. I just wasn't eating that much. And especially before kids, I was very, very thin. So if I lost even a little bit of weight, it did not look good. It did not look good. And I had family and friends kind of be like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm okay." It's just that's kind of my reaction and not taking the time to have like a healthy meal. Now I feel like since I've been back from this cruise, it's been the opposite. I'm like, I want all the things. I want the pizza and the subs and I want pad thai every day. Cause like, and not that it's bad. I mean, sometimes that in and of itself can be self-care. And listen, I got a sub this week and it made me happy and it brought me so much joy. But after a couple days of doing that, I was like, ugh, I don't feel good. I don't feel good at all. And so just taking the time to make a green smoothie or have a good salad at night really kind of helped me to feel even more of a reset. And that's what I plan on doing this week too. Maybe stopping after the gym tomorrow, getting a green juice, something to that effect, I think can be really helpful. And it's been helping me over the past few days. And mindfulness and meditation. I know I talk about this a lot on this podcast, and we do a lot of meditation every time we have a coaching session in the Wealthy Lawyer Squad and the Law School Blueprint for the Law School Success Blueprint or the Lawyer Success Blueprint. We always start with a meditation because it sets the tone. I mean, even now I can feel my shoulders kind of creeping up and maybe not breathing like really deep into my chest, kind of keeping it shallow. And all of those things can not only kind of restrict oxygen, which can then hinder, our thought process and our ability to make decisions, especially in a stressful environment like law school or law practice. But one of the reasons I focus so much on this is it has been one of the biggest keys to my own personal career growth, wealth building, and success is just focusing on meditation. And not only just regular, meditation, whether it's guided or just sitting in silence, but also the mindfulness aspect of it all. And so just, taking the time to kind of put things into perspective and think, okay, yes, I feel stressed out. I feel burnt out, but let me go back to the basics of what I really can focus on and from a gratitude perspective. What do I have in my life? I have a roof over my head. I have clean water. I have fresh food, access to food, anything I really want. I have my family. I have my friends. I have my businesses. And even with the real estate, I kept saying to myself, not in every moment, I'm human, but in a lot of moments thinking, wow, like how lucky am I to have this problem, to have this investment property that I now get to sell, even if it's like a classic law school exam, like real property class, like all the things that could happen and go wrong in a transaction. But how lucky am I to even have those problems and just taking 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes just to kind of ground, get that nervous system kind of relaxed again and focused on what we really have, especially, living in first world countries. Like we not to say that our problems are real, but when you really think about it and you really get that perspective, I think it helps a lot. Even if you're sitting in a law school exam or class or the bar exam, or you're dealing with a partner or client who's, just a little, they're getting to you, taking that 5 minutes to step back and just think, okay, maybe this is not an ideal situation. Maybe the way this treatment is something that I'm going to decide is not for me, or I'm going to put boundaries with that individual client, boss, whoever it might be. But that perspective, I think, is so, so key in that gratitude piece, just to kind of put things back into, again, perspective and knowing that no matter what is happening, there are amazing, incredible, good, positive things in our life that we can also focus on. I think another thing that I was not doing well before my trip is making sure that you're managing your time wisely. I think that one of the biggest things that I have learned and relearned is effective time management, making sure that I have a clear to-do list and that I am, figuring out exactly how I want that list to play out. Is it something that I'm doing? Is it something that I'm delegating? Is it something that I'm calendaring? So I would challenge you. There's a few different time management kind of theories out there, but I really think that the Eisenhower Matrix is a fascinating one. So if you've ever read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talk about this in that book. And it's basically figuring out through each task that you have, is it urgent or is it important? So an urgent task is, say you have a law school exam on X date. Studying and preparing and outlining and practicing for that exam is urgent. There might be important tasks along the way that you need to accomplish to get to that urgent task. So maybe it's, the first day of class or the first, beginning weeks, starting to get that outline in place. Maybe it's not quote unquote urgent at that point in time. So you calendar, every day after class, I'm going to spend X amount of time in the law library making sure that I have that outline in place. Or maybe it's, in your law firm job and you have a billable hour requirement that every day at 5 o'clock, you stop what you're doing and you enter in your time for that day or whatever it might be. If it's urgent, then it's something that you're doing immediately. It's something that you need to accomplish in the now. So maybe, entering your time is important, not urgent. You need to push it back to 5:30 or 6 because the partner calls and says, I need an answer to this research issue now so I can prepare for a client meeting tomorrow. That is urgent. Or maybe you're in class and the professor says, I need this, I want you to do this research assignment for me by this date. That is urgent. Whatever it might be, figuring out urgent versus important and then doing the urgent things, calendaring the important things. And then if there's something you can delegate, delegating. For me, I have decided in my life that laundry is not something that I do. I have delegated that. Cleaning my house is not something that I do. I have delegated that and I'm fortunate enough to do so because those are things that I could do, but I don't need to be the one who is doing them in order for them to get done well. In fact, they get done better than if I did them to begin with. And then there's a fourth category where it's not urgent or important and it doesn't need to happen at all and it's just something you can push right off of your desk or your calendar and delete it. Learning to say no to commitments, to events, to even things in law school if someone asks you to do something and it doesn't fit within your goals, just saying no to it. It can be so important. And then once you've kind of figured out the urgent versus the important, figuring out what the goal is and then breaking that into smaller steps is so important. So when we have a project and we're working with, say, a high net worth client and we're going to do their basic estate planning and they're more complex and we need to get valuations for businesses and we need to connect with their CPA and their financial advisor, having a step-by-step plan, knowing who on the team is doing each step and then implementing that plan. And I've done a lot of different planners over the years. Right now I use Clever Fox and I really like it. That in our Google Calendar is like a lifesaver and setting reminders for myself sometimes as well has been amazing. Whatever works for you, paper, digital, and getting it in place because once it's out of your mind and on the calendar or on paper, on your to-do list, it's amazing how much that mental energy will stop draining you. Because if we just spin out, oh, I have to do this and this and this, and we don't write it down, it's still lingering and taking up space in our brains that we could otherwise use for rest, reading, making important decisions, things of that nature. Also, seeking support. I think that's one of the biggest things. So, talking to your friends and family, a therapist, a coach, joining the Wealthy Lawyer Squad, whatever it is that fits your comfort level and the support that you need because we can't do this alone. We can't do life alone. We can't do law and law school alone, or we shouldn't at least. And I feel like so many times over the years, I've just tried to kind of do it on my own and white knuckle, but we don't have to do it that way. There's so many options out there, even just sitting for coffee with a friend, maybe who isn't in law school or isn't a lawyer and just talking, venting, or talking about something else entirely different, or talking about something that excites you, and just not being afraid to reach out for help. I know in prior episodes, I've given resources. If you're in law school, so often your law school will have an on campus therapist or they will have resources that they can give to you. And remember, I know there is such a stigma around therapy. And that's why I talk so much about the fact that I have a therapist, because it really shouldn't be. I consider it like the gym, but for my brain. I consider it like something that I do that's on my calendar that I is a commitment to myself so I can stay mentally strong and run a law firm and be a mom and do all the other things, that I'm doing. And be strong for, my coaching clients as well in the Wealthy Lawyer Squad. And truly just finding, mentors and support within the law school environment. I'm always here. If there's anything that you need, please don't ever hesitate to reach out. I really want to be a resource, whether you're in the squad or not, to make sure that you are enjoying your career, you're feeling supported, and you don't feel alone out there just kind of on an island. And then I think the last thing, and that this is for me where reading always comes in, just focusing on whatever makes you feel good, makes you feel strong and healthy, and whatever you feel passionate about. I could read all day, every day. So for me, it relaxes me. It takes me to kind of another world for a little bit. And it really is my passion, and it makes me feel so good. Also, I just had lunch, with a referral partner, and we talked about our usual stuff. I talked about Flourish and Wealthy Lawyer Squad, and he talked about his business and the insurance industry. But then we started talking about building businesses. And I made a comment that I love building businesses and I could just do it all day long. And he's like, I do too. I'm actually starting this new business with some friends. And he was explaining it to me. And you could just tell like we kind of shifted from our normal like spiel about, our jobs and our businesses and what we do into like, oh wow, that's so cool. And he was explaining, everything to me and his business partners. And you could just see us like kind of like leaning forward, like, oh wow, that's so awesome. Finding whatever that is and kind of reconnecting to whatever brought you to law school, the law in the first place, I think will help a lot as well. But I hope this episode was helpful. I hope that if you are feeling anywhere close to burnout or in the midst of it, that you really take this episode to heart. Think about some of the things that can help you. And if you were like, no, I'm good, making sure that you take these steps to prevent ever going down that path at the greatest extent possible. But I think it's important to know, especially for those of us who are A type and, really goal oriented, that it is okay to feel this way. I have to tell myself that it is okay and it's normal and it's part of the human experience. So, thank you so, so much. I'm so happy that you tuned into this episode of the Wealthy Lawyer Squad, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Bye, everyone.